Welcome everybody to opening night of the Latinx New Play Festival, San Diego Reps Latinx New Play Festival. I am so honored to be moderating this first panel as my first duty as the artistic producer of the San Diego Repertory Theater. It's my first day on the job, y'all. I'm so excited to be a part of this team here and to be bringing new plays to y'all and to be introducing our two directors that we have here. We have Dr. Daphne Sigre, teaches theater at Loyola Marymount University. She shares a deep passion for Black and Latinx perspectives in theater. Her latest publication is a co authored article entitled Training Theater Students of Color in the United States in the Theater, Dance, and Performance Training Journal, and a book chapter, Romeo y Julieta, a Spanish language Shakespeare in the Park for Shakespeare and Latinidad, among many other publications. And Daphne is also the resident dramaturg at the Roby Theater, where she runs the playwrights lab and some select dramaturg credits include an octoroon at the Fountain Theater. I saw that, Daphne. I'm here from. It's my first day in San Diego from LA, and I'm here with a fellow Angelino. I'm so excited. Welcome, Daphne, to the panel. And y'all met Patrice. She is one of our directors. We have Dr. Maria Patrice Amen with us. She is an associate artistic director and Latinx projects producer at San Diego Rep. She launched the Latinx New Play Festival at San Diego Repertory Theater, produces a stage reading series. It produces a stage reading series, offers networking events with Amigos del Rep, repping my Amigos del Rep shirt, but I don't think you can see it because of my sun spot here. She's a Southern California-based director, dramaturg, producer, and scholar. What doesn't she do? Directing credits include Mojada at UCSD, a Zoom of One's Own at CSUSM, Dream House for CSUSM, Fade at Moxie Theater. The list goes on and on. Honored to call her coworker. Welcome, Maria Patrice Amen, and again, Daphne Sigre. Daphne, my first question is actually for you because you just finished directing for Playwrights Arena, correct?
Yes, I did.
So how is it returning to having to direct for virtual after having just directed a really cool outdoor show?
Well, basically I was in the process of directing like 3 shows. So actually it worked out really well to be able to go back into virtual because I finished closing waiting, and that was outdoors and people were masked, the actors were wearing face shields, and then I jumped into literally like closing weekend, and the next day I jumped into directing online Black Mexican, and then this week I've been working on auditions and casting for the fall production. I'm doing also in person at my institution. I'm doing everybody but random Jacob Jenkins, and so it's been the gift of being able to have this online is that I could literally work on 3 projects at once. It's insanity, but if you're a director, that's what you love and that's what you do. So
Yes, indeed. And I'm sure, Maria Patrice, you could speak to that insanity because not only are you the producer of this amazing festival, you're directing this year. How has this process been for you?
I completely echo Daphne's sentiment there of online has been a challenge, but it's also been a gift in being able to work on multiple projects at once, and gives us the opportunity to connect with artists who may not be local to us. So balancing both producing this festival with directing in the festival is a challenge. But it's also a great reward because I get to work with artists across the US and artists from a shared connection that Juliana and I have at UC Irvine, who is working on her MFA when we were both graduate students there. Maribel Martinez, who's going to be in the reading that you're going to see on Sunday. And it was a gift to be able to be virtual, to be able to work with her in this role. When I read the script, she was the first person who came to my mind for this role. And because we went virtual, we were able to connect with her. She lives all the way across the US in New York, which for us locally would be a really big challenge to be able to work with her. But because We got to bring in people outside of our time zones. We got to bring career into this project in a really exciting and rewarding way.
Patrice, let me tell you how small the world is. Maribel went to college at FIU with my former high school students because I used to be a high school student. So I got to see her perform when she was in college, and then I've got to so I've known her since then, and I've got to follow her entire career. She actually was just in the play that I dramaturg. Also, I was dramaturging in LA while she was performing in Connecticut. It's just such a small world, and I think the internet's making us be able to make it a little bit smaller.
And
What is
Maribel Martinez is just an amazing, amazing artist. Sorry, Patrice, I spoke over you there. Go ahead.
No worries. I was just astounded at how small the worlds are, how overlapping our worlds are. How exciting.
Yes. So you both mentioned the shows that you're directing, and I failed in sharing that. So we have today Black Mexican by Rachel Lynette, which is airing after this panel here, which Daphne is directing. Our other two directors that we don't have with us in this panel, we have Cambria Herrera directing Transformada by Lily Gonzalez. That is happening tomorrow at 12 p.m. Folks, join us for that. And also tomorrow at 3 p.m., Get Your Pink Hands Off Me, Sucker, and Give Me Back by Daniela de Jesus, directed by Taylor Reynolds. That is happening at 3 o'clock. And then, of course, A Skeptic and a Bruja by Rosa Fernandez, directed by Maria Patrice Amen. These are all new plays that are premiering over this weekend. What is that? How is that process for you different as a director in development and working with the dramaturg versus doing something that is published? What does it mean to be directing a new play for a festival versus a production?
Daphne, do you want
Either
to
one,
start?
yeah.
Sure. I do a lot of new work as either a dramaturg or playwright, or sorry, as a dramaturg director, or sometimes I'm a dramaturg slash director within the production, depending on what and how they hire me. And so for this production, most important for me was to have a conversation with the playwright and see what they wanted. And for this production, the focus was the playwright, not necessarily the directorial, focus on production focus that comes with that. And so my most important for me was the word of the playwright, to give the playwright time to be able to have rewrites every day if they want to. Rachel was able to develop 2 brand new scenes and do a tremendous amount of cuts and changes to the script. And for me, that makes me incredibly happy because then it allows the playwright to keep developing the new work that has not been published yet. And so the script came to us in one way and it's leaving in another. And so for me, that is a successful sort of workshop directing, because and in the process of that, what I do is we go through the scenes and we talk about the scenes and we ask questions about the scenes. And Rachel's able to sit in the room and hear that sort of table work, characterization work, research, given circumstances type work, that you would do sort of as table work more than anything else. And then she's able to take it back and decide to create a new scene or add something or change something. And to me, that's so important. And I'm looking at that perspective. And so when y'all get to see the performance tonight, you'll see that it's the script. The script is the main character, and the script is the principle of the production. And we have these incredible actors that have come in and given their hearts and souls and their minds to these characters and really thought deeply as actors should, who these characters are, why are they making these choices, why are they saying these things, and dug into that sort of conversation. So that's the kind of work that I've done for this production. And again, when it comes to new work, I prefer asking a playwright, what do they want? I've had other playwrights who are like, oh no, here it is, have fun, and they leave and they're like, okay, and they're like, do whatever you want. I've had some playwrights who are like, oh, make this an active reading so that it's as much as a production as possible with them reading still. So again, whatever the playwright wants, whatever process they're in, is what I try to honor as a director.
Thank you, Daphne. Patrice?
I, again, completely agree with Daphne here. When we are curating the season and we're coming to that point of decision making, when we're coming down to the final 4, we begin with conversations with the playwrights and asking, what are your goals for this piece? we have X amount of hours that we can work with artists in the space. What do you want to work on? What do you want to put attention on? We select the pieces for the festival because we fall in love with the stories or we fall in love with the characters, and we identify something that we think our audiences are going to be really excited about. And then we give the space to the artist and we say, what is it that you want to focus on? Where do you want to put your attention? So with Rosa and working on A Skeptic and a Bruja, Rosa and I had the great fortune of being able to work together once before on a stage read or a workshop reading of it, of the play for Urbanite Theater back in, I want to say before summer, so like in spring of this year. And it was really a rewarding experience to be able to like connect with her and dig into the characters of the script. There had been one reading before then that was just a casual friends only reading, not really open to the public. And I think she clocked that reading at 3 hours long. So our workshop, our first workshop was, the goal was to move it away from 3 hours down to about 2 hours. And that was the first workshop that we did. But on this most recent time, we again started with asking Rosa what her goals for the piece were. What exactly did she want to consider and spend time with? And it was really deepening the relationships between the characters and deepening the grounding of each character. And then looking at the spooky moments. So A Skeptic and a Bruja is a haunted story or a spooky play. We also often call it a horror play, but as you can tell, that word is just a little bit harder for me to pronounce. And so we wanted to look at those moments because knowing that horror works so different on film than it does on the stage. And how are we manipulating sound? How do we anticipate that lighting is going to work here in conversation? And using my director brain with her storyteller brain and putting them together to think about those moments and play and massage and see, anticipate how they're going to come out, and then bring them to y'all and be able to like hear your responses to them. That's still the point that we haven't had the chance to share with you, and we're so excited to do so on Sunday, because that's the last piece of our puzzle that we're trying to figure out how these pieces are, or how these beats are working.
Thank you. As I was listening to both of you, I couldn't help but just take in that we have three Latinas on this phone call. And the question that came to mind in that moment was, what brought you to directing? You're both multi hyphenated, you're both doctors. There's so many statistics that work against us as Latinas, even in higher education. You're part of that, I think it's 20% or maybe even less than 20% that have higher education beyond even a bachelor's degree. And so I want to say congratulations and inspiring. You both are inspiring in that regard. What brought you on your trajectory or brought you to being a director? How did you get on the path for any other young Latinas that might be listening in here and feeling as inspired as I am right now by listening to both of you?
Well, Juliana, that's so sweet to hear. I always describe my path as very meandering and like not straight in any way. I come to directing through academia, and I come to academia through the law. So I began in the law school track. I had in my head I was going to be a lawyer and be a lawyer, be a lawyer. And then I got to law school and was like, oh, this is not a good fit. This is not comfortable at all. And decided that if I had one life, I wanted to spend it doing something I really enjoyed. And at that point, the thing I enjoyed was watching plays. So I got into theater through like school thinking I'd be a professor because I liked to talk. And then got into the world of academia, into the PhD, and really felt a little isolated from the art making and said, what am I going to do? I think I'm going to be a costume designer because I like costumes and I like sewing, and that could be fun. Got there and then realized that actually I really wanted to shape the thing. I wanted to tell the story, not just through the outfitting of the actors or the characters on the stage, but in all of the different elements that you get to put together to tell the story. Uh, and so then made the jump over and the shift over. It was always like a test. I think I can do this. And then into like actually making projects happen. Daphne, how about you?
All right. Oh my goodness. So I've always loved theater. My father always exposed me to theater. I grew up in Spain. I was born in Ecuador. Mom was Peruvian, so I spent time in Peru and grew up in Spain. And Spain's very much so part. In Spain, theater is very much so part of the culture. You start reading plays from El Siglo del Oro as young as 5th grade, 6th grade. It's what you're reading in your literature classes. It's completely normal. Just like in England, they're reading Shakespeare in like 5th, 6th grade, 4th grade. We're doing the same thing. And so I was exposed to seeing plays at a very young age, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. But I was an athlete. And so when you're an athlete, you have to sort of pick between sports or theater. You can't do both. And so when I was in high school, I decided to focus on sports so that I could get scholarships to go to college. And then I would volunteer in the theater. And so finally, got my scholarships to go to college in like 2 sports. And then I realized that I could actually audition for a play and finish like I would run from like track practice. Track practice would go from like 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock. I'd have from 6 o'clock to 6:30 to eat, and then 6:30 to 9:30 I could be in a play. And so I did it. And then I also signed up for an acting class. So eventually we started as a theater minor, ended up being a double major, and then eventually a triple major. And so I got so excited because I realized that I could do both. I could actually be an athlete and also do plays. And I realized really quickly when I was in college that I didn't want to be an actor. I didn't like the specifics that were being put on ourselves as women and our bodies. I didn't like being eroticized. I didn't like being sexualized on a consistent basis. And I didn't like being, there was the roles that you get cast in, either a sexual object or a maid. And so I got tired of that. And so I said, let me change it. So that that's not the case. And I decided to go into stage management and directing. And with that, I decided that I would start maybe a theater program with high school students to offer opportunities to students of color. And I did. I was in Miami, started a theater program from scratch. It was incredible and amazing experience. Was there for like 7 years. And when I was there, I got my master's in educational theater so I could continue my training in theater and teaching. And eventually I realized I wanted to get a PhD. And while all of this is happening, I'm directing. So I've been directing for like almost 20 years, starting off with high school students and then moving on. When I moved to New York, I was directing there. Every other year, I was directing at least a production off Broadway. And you start small and you start sort of with your friends and self-produce, and you rent a space and you direct a show and you just make it happen. And so I did a whole bunch of productions, and they got some acclaim and some awards, and just continued the work as I was going and getting my PhD. And I just knew I wanted to go into academia to change curricula, change what is being taught, change what's being presented, and hopefully change the field. And so through the work that I've been directing, which is normally almost always playwrights of color or stories of folks of color, also very social justice based. And so I've been doing that for, my goodness, at least 15 years. And then just really pushing for that. And I've continued to do that. And now that I'm in LA, started directing professionally like I was doing in New York, and just try to continue that while teaching. So trying to do both sort of things while still doing sports, by the way. Trying to change all those things and changing the field. And so if I can contribute in any form, shape, or way, whether it's helping develop new plays like this festival, right? Like this is amazing. Like whoever's watching, please, like read all these plays, produce these plays, put them on stages, put them on stages, get these plays produced so that we can change our field. We can diversify our field. We can increase representation in our field because it's very much so needed. And these voices and this festival this year, I'm just blown away by the selection of plays and it's diversity in itself within like Latinidad and within the festival itself, and makes me very happy to see that.
Thank you, Daphne. You touched on a lot of great things, and one of the biggest things is change, right? And it's great, meeting another change maker, and I think Patrice, that is also something that you are as well. And so, what are this festival alone, right, is something that is this is its fifth year, correct?
Yes, 5.
Year five. Happy fifth anniversary. I imagine, Patrice, how that you're 5 years in, the first year. What are some changes even you've seen in that span? And from how did you conceive this? How did you start this? What got it going?
Many, many great questions. The festival came about from originally an impulse from Sam Woodhouse, our artistic director here at San Diego Repertory Theater. He had the desire to put together a Latinx or a Hispanic Festival of New Work. The Rep has a long history of producing Latinx artists. If you come in person or you check out our social media posts, you'll see a timeline of posters of the different Latinx playwrights who we've had here over the past 30 years. And so he wanted to create a festival to continue that work, to expand the pipeline, to have more artists coming into our world. And about 5 years ago, we finally had enough people in place to put it together and to get it up on its feet. That first year was a little bit chaotic. We got a festival going together in about 6 months' time from the moment of like, yes, let's do this, until we invited audiences in was about 6 months, and probably the most stressful 6 months of my life. But getting it up and getting it to exist for that very first year really showed what's possible. And really showed that this very initial idea could be something that speaks to our community in a really profound way. I say our community, meaning both our Latinx community and our San Diego local community. And after that first year, we actually saw the desire of theater decision makers, both literary managers, artistic directors, and producers across the US, show interest in the plays that we were doing. And so then we said, okay, this is something that speaks to both San Diego, but actually could speak to a national audience. And the drive beyond that first year was to expand it further and expand it further. COVID threw us a curveball in the middle of last year. We had anticipated coming back in person, and then when it became very clear that that just wasn't going to be a possibility, we shifted online. And that shift online, again, was this whole challenge benefit thing or challenge blessing thing. And moving online showed us how many people in regions other than Southern California were interested in these stories, and how the work that we're doing here locally does have a national impact. We saw our audiences bloom and really, really grow across regions. I think we were in 38 states last year in a very exciting way. And we hope again to have really wide diversity of audiences this year. But it speaks to how hungry we are as a nation. The things that I've seen over the past 5 years, like thematically, they've shifted and changes. Our first 2 years really came with a strong emphasis on immigration and stories and themes connecting to immigration. These past couple of years, it really has been a shift to family, both chosen family and birth family, and what the impact of those relationship or those like centering relationships have on the lives of characters. I'm curious to see what future years will bring us and how those themes and the focuses across our community will come to us, and how we can, again, continue to reach new audiences with the work that we're doing.
Amazing. That's yeah. Like also just a quick the audience that's in there. Quick round of applause for Patrice. Like, congrats, Patrice, on all that. But I we have about 5 minutes left on this conversation with the two directors, and I just I'm curious about, you spoke about COVID throwing a curveball, and Daphne, I quickly did an intro of your bio, but you created a couple things and really explored during the time of COVID. What did you discover in that process? And are there elements of virtual theater that you look to integrate now in person, having had the chance to be in person as well? And also for Patrice too, if there's anything that doing virtual theater that you're like, this is really cool to incorporate in person, or just kind of takeaways from this time of having to take our art form that is live and in person to be in this media format.
Well, a couple really cool things. Last year I was on the directing panel, and we talked about the sort of conversion, right, of like moving completely fully online and what happens. And I had written a document that went viral that people all over the country and outside of the United States were using to help them sort of move from online, move from in person to online. And so I just look at, we're artists. This is theater. We can do anything. I really do. I mean, I look at that, and I felt like I just had to remind people. I'm like, we don't have to stay within a box. Like theater is so much more than staying in a box, and we've been seeing that with Zoom productions and things of the sort. But I think to me, the most incredible thing that I've discovered is the fact that I can use this, my table reads. If for some reason we can't meet in person, boom, I've done a lot of table reads before moving in person on Zoom. Readings. We can now do readings and cast people. No theater can tell me that they can't do a reading and not find actors, because now you can find actors from anywhere in the world and you can Zoom them in. So you cannot tell me that you cannot produce this play or work this play or workshop this play, because now you have access to anyone around the world who has access to Wi-Fi. We do have to put that out there. If they don't have access to Wi-Fi, then no, or the internet or Ethernet cards. And so that's really critical, in that I think that that's going to really expand accessibility to a lot of folks, and also hopefully expand theater's choices in what they're producing or workshopping or developing. And so in this past year, I have seen theaters take some risks, and I'm excited on those theaters taking those risks that are starting to develop works by artists of color and really pushing towards uplifting and amplifying the voices of the global majority. And so I'm hoping that we can continue doing that. I do hope that they move from an online to actual productions in person, that they don't just stay in the online world. That is my hope as we're moving next. But I really think it's become a great platform. I was listening to a couple artistic directors from across the country, and they were sharing especially in the Native American and indigenous populations, again, accessibility and being able to produce Native American works and get actors from different places, and what that means for those kinds of spaces and communities, and again, representation and voices and all of that. So I think that the online world is here to stay, whether we like it or not. I think we can be as creative as we want to in the online world. We don't have to stay within a box. We can create some really cool things, and I've seen some directors go all out, and I was seeing some photographs from some of the productions that this weekend, and some directors have definitely taken another step, not beyond workshopping the play. And I can't wait to see that, because again, that reflects the creativity of being online. And so, yes, to doing theater in person, I go back, but I have to go out of the country. But even though I have to go out of the country, I can continue rehearsals, because I can hold some of my rehearsals on Zoom. And so that's really exciting, that I can still leave where I'm at and still continue doing the work. And so cheers to what's going to happen next. And just happy that we are able to we're in a transition space right now. Some theaters are still doing work online because of COVID and their populations and the Delta variant and breakthrough cases, and people still catching COVID and wanting to be as cautious and protective of their actors as possible, and those working in the theater. And then there's other theaters that are trying to find that balance of being in person. And so I think this is going to stay, and we just have to sort of embrace it and utilize it for the good.
Thank you, Daphne. Patrice, I know you're ready with the response, but I do want to share that if any audience member, virtual or in person, has a question that they're just dying to ask, we can go ahead and take that question after Patrice's response here, because I know she's ready.
I think the only thing to add to Daphne's response is the tool of accessibility. So the online platform gives us the ability to caption our work. So if there are audience members who are hard of hearing or deaf, we have the ability to transcribe and add captioning to our pieces in a very exciting way. Um, are
And
there
I
any?
would,
So closed captioning, right?
Yeah, closed
Patrice,
captioning.
Yeah.
as you
Closed
were saying
captioning.
that, I thought about one more thing too, educational, right? So now a kid in the middle of Nebraska could come across this festival and see it. And I think that that's amazing. That goes back to what you were saying, Patrice, the reach of the festival when it went online. And so, you know, this festival can be inspiring someone somewhere in this country or beyond that didn't know that this is possible.
Or even the accessibility to lots of Latinx works that happen, right? Like Luis Alfaro's stuff was his trilogy was made completely accessible online, and I believe it's now available educationally that if any instructor wants to teach Luis Alfaro's trilogy, it's available. And and it's available in print. Like what a world we live in. Any questions from our audience in person or um virtually? If we don't have any, we can end with any closing remarks that you'd both like to leave to kick off our opening night weekend with our directing panel, and then we'll be doing Black Mexican by Rachel Lynette, directed by you, Daphne. So, any questions from our audience?
I think we are good and ready to break before we go to Black Mexican by Rachel Lynette.
Great. Any last remarks from Daphne, Patrice?
I would just say, keep experimenting, keep writing, keep creating, to everyone who's doing the work, and keep believing that you can do this. Both Patrice and myself, we came to this at different points in our life, and I remember about 13 years ago, I was like, I want to be directing professionally and teach at the college level and direct plays. And I said that and I wrote it down, and fast forward and I'm doing what I want. And so you just got to keep pursuing it no matter how hard it is, whether, if you're interested in directing and you're a young Latinx, Latina person, and this is something that you want to do, pursue it. And if anyone's interested in reaching out and having a conversation with me, please find me social media. Please find my email, and I'd love to talk to you about the route of what it is to do this work and engage in directing. It is possible. There's so many possibilities. So if you love this work and you want to do it, do it.
And also check out the rest of the pieces on the festival. We have 4 readings today and 4 readings this weekend, one today, and a spotlight show on tomorrow on Saturday night. So we hope that you join us for the rest of our panels and for the pieces in the festival.
Yes, join us, and there is still time to join us in person this weekend if you still want to have a weekend and get a cool Latinx theater, Max. I actually don't know if they're getting given away to our participants, but you can see us in person with these on, which Patrice is wearing there. Thank you both so much for joining me. Thank you, in-person audience and virtual audience. This was our directing panel. We're heading into a break.